If you're sick of the front end of your gun looking too similar to the rat's nest of obsolete USB cables I know you've probably got somewhere in the vicinity of your computer, stay tuned because we're about to show you how to Marie Kondo your light and laser setup. What is up, guys? My name is John with Pew Pew Tactical, your definitive source for gun reviews, gear guides, and all things that go bang. One of the bigger projects that we've been working on recently has been stepping into the night vision game for the first time, which is just about as complicated as you might expect if you don't know anything about it. In addition to all of the research that goes into selecting a night vision unit itself, the money pit unfortunately doesn't end there. You're likely also going to need an IR laser and an IR illuminator of some sort to get the most out of your nighttime blapping. While we're still working on all of the particulars of that video, we figured it might be fun to kind of walk you through some issues that can crop up when you start adding all of this high-tech shit to the front of your blaster, and that's cable management. Now, there's no real right or wrong way to do this, so feel free to mix and match and combine all sorts of techniques depending on your individual setup. Obviously, you want what works best for you. Starting with the most complicated setup we've got in the lineup today, this is my personal upper, which features a Steiner DBAL A3 and a Surefire Scout light on a Midwest Industries M-LOK mount that puts it at about a high 1 o'clock on my handguard. The entire setup is controlled by a combination of a Unity Tactical hot button that fires both the IR flood and the IR laser for nighttime target acquisition and aiming, and a Unity Tactical tap sync that's capable of firing the visible laser with the forwardmost button, and a combination of the Surefire and visible laser with the rearmost button. The tap sync actually comes with a Picatinny mount, but if you remove it, it reveals an M-LOK interface that you can use to attach directly to an M-LOK handguard like I've done here. The system is admittedly a tiny bit convoluted, but it still remains the best solution that we've found to have access to all of those features that the DBAL offers. You've got the IR illuminator, the IR laser, the visible laser, and a system that unites all of it that allows you to still fire your white weapon light when you need to. Obviously, if we relegated each one of those features to its own individual pressure pad, it would be significantly messier than what we've got going on here. The Unity pads themselves actually feature some really long leads, which is great if you've got a kind of weirder setup where you might need the switch placed somewhere kind of far away from the device. But since everything on my gun is a little bit more centralized, we're gonna have to wrangle these bad boys. Without further ado, here is my current mitigation solution. So the name of the game here for this particular solution is going to be zip ties. No brainer. They're cheap, they're affordable. That's the same thing. They're easy to find, and you can always cut them off if you start to anchor something down and then realize you don't actually like it in that position. And speaking of which, obviously I just did this. This is completely untested. Once I actually get out and start using it for nighttime stuff, I'm sure there might be some stuff that I might want to change around on it. So we'll see. Starting up front with the Unity hot button, as I was saying, the leads on it are very long. Doesn't really make sense to me to run them down the rail and back up, so my solution is to sort of wrap them around the unit and add a few anchor points to keep it from coming loose. I kind of don't really like the busyness that I've got with all these wires kind of crossing up in the front there, but we'll see. This probably seems super obvious, but once you trim off the excess with the zip ties, you might want to rotate them just so that sharp edge from where you cut it is not going to be anywhere near your hands while you are manipulating any of these surfaces. So once I've got the DBAL running its IR settings, I can actually have the illuminator and the IR laser slaved to the hot button itself. But as you can probably see, there's a lot of different controls in the back of the DBAL, so I can kind of flip it to whatever I want, which makes this secondary tap system a tiny bit redundant, unless you want to have access to all of the functions without having to bother with that switch. Now with the tap sync, you can probably see I took those two leads and actually ran them sort of crisscrossed around each other and utilized the little bit of overhang from the pressure pad to sort of keep them rooted along the top part of the handguard. There's an anchor point at the back that sort of serves two purposes. It obviously is going to wrangle these wires to make sure that they don't really have any wiggle room, and I actually might go back and tighten that up just a tiny bit. But the M-LOK screw with this particular Stinger handguard doesn't lock in super securely on the rear for whatever reason. It's kind of just long enough to where it doesn't really grab that rear edge. So it'll get a tiny bit of purchase, but that zip tie is also helping lock the entire pressure pad in place as well. So pretty much the solution here is to take all of the excess and run it underneath. And these leads are stiff enough to where they're actually going to give you a little bit of resistance. I don't really see those slipping out. Tuck them underneath the unit and then snake out just enough to hit those connectors in the back. And hopefully they stay in place. But again, we'll see when I actually get out and start shooting it. And lastly, the lead for the Surefire, same thing, kind of snakes forward, and I did add one more anchor point with a zip tie up here just to make sure that it doesn't really have anywhere to go. But it is loose enough to where if I needed to adjust it, I can kind of tug on that and I'll get a little bit of play, but you know, not enough to where it's going to come loose while I'm actually using it. It's also worth noting that originally we started off with this Surefire dual pressure pad that has a connection for either a DBAL or an ATPL, just AR-15 for civilians, and then the Surefire light connector itself, but this guy doesn't allow you to control more than one function at a time. You gotta fire them individually. For some people that's totally okay. Not really what we wanted to do here, but additionally, this is Picatinny only, and personally I don't really like having an entirely M-lock handguard if I can't take advantage of that. Having an intermediary adapter that goes from M-lock to Picatinny when I've got an entire M-lock handguard just seems a little bit silly. So we ditched this, and that's why we went with the tap sync. As I mentioned before, I'm not really going to dive into the particulars of the DBAL and all that stuff because we do have some pretty cool night stuff that we're working on that should be out hopefully sometime soon, maybe end of summer, early fall. So something to look forward to, and hopefully this brief little tutorial kind of gives you an idea of how you might be able to route and clean up your own cables. While we're on the subject, here are a few more setups based on some of the other uppers and lights that we had around the office, just to kind of give you an idea. This is our editor's main pistol caliber carbine that he uses mostly for night matches, and it features a Streamlight ProTac HLX on another angled Midwest M-lock mount with a pressure pad mounted directly to the top pick rail via Streamlight's included pressure pad mounting square things. There's nothing super crazy going on here. The excess cable is routed forward just like I was talking about and secured with a zip tie. Now, this is sort of a weird in-between build where we might throw a LAM of some kind on this gun in the future, which is why it's got a Streamlight dual pressure pad on it. However, up until that point, you probably don't want your other connector just kind of dangling there exposed, even if you lock it down with a zip tie. So we've actually got an anchor point on the front to make sure that those two cables aren't dangling around, and a piece of just bicycle inner tube, stretchy rubber weird material that is both giving us an anchor point for those cables at the rear and also giving us a little bit of protection for that rear connector just to make sure that it doesn't get damaged up until the point that we throw some sort of laser on it. We've got a similar setup on this upper running the Olight Odin, which is kind of cool, kind of wacky little light, but it is absurdly bright, and most notably, it does come with this sort of neat modular mount that can be flipped around all sorts of ways. We've got it set up so that it attaches to the top pick rail right now. You can remove the light and attach it to this upper portion that you might be able to see here if you wanted to run it at something like a traditional 90 degree off of one of your side rails. Cool idea, kind of weird execution because this open slot with a little detent pin in there seems like it would just get real crusty the second you take it out in the dirt and kind of get some sand and grime in it, but I will say Olight's pressure pad mounting system actually is a lot more solid than Streamlight's, so they've at least got that going for them. But again, not a whole lot to say, just run that wire forward and then anchor it at the front with a zip tie to make sure it can't go anywhere. And lastly, there are obviously some units that just completely bypass the need to wrangle wires to begin with, such as Cloud Defensive's OWL. We've talked about the OWL a few different times on a few different other videos, so I'm not going to go real in depth here, but it does contain this really cool mount system that houses the pressure pad itself, and the light is actually completely reversible. The tail cap and the head can be flipped, so you can flip that whole mount around just in case you're wrong-handed. This does come at a bit of a weight cost, as this thing is pretty chunky, but you know, if you'd rather just avoid the entire hassle of having to route and then anchor wires to begin with, yep. Alright guys, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said, this was just a quick little overview, probably a common problem that a lot of us face when we start tricking the guns out, so hopefully you find it helpful, and if it is, let us know in the comment section below. Once again, my name is John with Pew Pew Tactical, and we will see you next time.